Alabama, Georgia, round 2. The working theory is it's really hard to beat a team a second time. I would argue it's hard to beat a team like Georgia one time, especially in their building. So Alabama did it then. I was talking to some folks at Georgia earlier today. I said, kind of, how do you guys feel? And the main takeaway was, all right, Drew Bobo out, starting center out. We can't sugarcoat that. That's a huge loss for us. But remember what we were missing the first time around against Alabama. We were all banged up at our tackle spots. Pass rush hadn't come on yet. And then those lights that were red are now kind of green. Even though you didn't see it last week, you hope that if you need to put the game in Gunnar Stockton's hands, he can get the job done. And this is me talking now, I go back to last week, on the road, playing the Iron Bowl. You get the win if you're Alabama, but Auburn broke 2 defensively what you would call pretty inexplicable explosives on you, and those were yards after catch type explosives. And then I look at what Zachariah Branch could present in terms of problems. Both teams are banged up. What's funny, we were talking about the committee earlier. What's funny is the losing team could come out of this and weaponize the committee's own protocol, their own stated protocol against them, and they could say, well, you can't be punishing us, man. We were banged up. We'll be healthy for the playoff, So we should have minimal punishment here. I very, very, very slightly went Georgia in this game. I did the first time. They lost on me the first time, so I'm going to double dip on it and see if I'm right this time. I really think it's a close game. Turnovers again. Third down. Don't know if Bama's going 13 of 19 again. Don't know if Georgia's going 2 of 8 again. Maybe a little progression and regression to the mean there. But just a couple of bounce of ball plays. Probably the difference to me.
Quickly, I'm just going to write this down again. You said the committee has and keeps protocol?
Let me rephrase. The committee has said some stuff. Loosely.
Just making sure.
Loosely.
Just making sure we're on the same page there.
They would call that protocol. I'm not going to go that far. I'm going to call it stuff.
Got it. Yeah. I think stuff is a much
term.
more technically acceptable term there for what we have seen this season. I like where you're going with some of the scenarios that are almost exact in premise of what these two teams have shown to either be good at and then what they've shown to give up. So I'm going to take that a step further with you and go to a couple more things. Go back to the LSU game for Alabama. And I actually spoke to Kane Womack after this game, and I said, is that the most you guys have moved all season? I haven't seen your defensive line be on the move that much. And he said, oh, by a long shot. Wasn't even close. Well, go back to the Auburn game a couple of weeks later, this past Saturday. That movement cost them yards on a very consistent basis. Now, it wasn't always the defensive line. Sometimes the nickel that was supposed to be down in run support was out in coverage, so there was some confusion other places. But especially with those +1 quarterback runs, that was problematic at times for the Alabama defense. Well, what's Georgia going to do? +1 quarterback runs. Flip that around. Kane Womack's vision defense is based essentially in zone principles. Gunnar Stockton did not see coverage well when Georgia Tech played zone last week. So here's what I'm struggling with, Josh. Do we get caught just in the last week or 2 or 3, or do we look collectively where these teams have been all season? Because you brought up the last time that they met. I felt great about Alabama the last time these two teams met. Felt pretty good about Georgia. Remember coming off that Tennessee game? We were like, I know what Georgia is. My opinion hasn't changed, but my opinion of Tennessee might be skyrocketing because we were probably a little bit down on them going into the season. I was pretty high on Bama then. I don't know if I feel as good about Alabama right now due to some of those offensive line struggles. This might not be 5 years ago Georgia front seven, but it's turned into a pretty good front seven. Christian Miller's making plays. You got 33-0-9, all finding ways to get to the quarterback. And this Alabama offensive line has just flat been inconsistent. So I would probably be with you, even though I think there are strengths with both of these teams that play into the weaknesses of the opposition, depending on which side of the ball is on the field. I'll go more philosophical with you here for my last point. This whole Kirby Smart Bama in his head thing can't last forever, right? That's where I keep going with this is there's no way that's just going to continue down this path. Kirby Smart's too good of a coach. Kirby Smart has too good of players. And it's not that Alabama doesn't have good players or Kalen DeBoer's not a good coach, but this isn't going to continue. It just isn't. Like college football history doesn't say that one of the greatest to ever live just couldn't do this for a very extended period of time. So I think that potentially is another part of why this reverses. And I'm with you in a game that I could probably see going 20 different ways. I'll take Georgia to sneak it out.
Hey, guys, do me one favor. check and see if you're subscribed to the channel. If you are, great. If you're not, it's that easy. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything. It doesn't sign you up for anything. It just helps us do the show this way forever. All right, back to the clip. They dropped a stat on me this morning that really hit me in the face. The trivia question was, which SEC head coach has lost the most SEC championship games in the history of the game, which dates back to 92? So the answer was Kirby. Now, the side note to that is, you have to get there to lose them. But then I was looking at that graphic there. So I guessed Richt. Okay, Richt had 3. Fulmer had 3. I think Spurrier had 3. They were all tied. And then Kirby's
I was going to guess Spurrier.
Yeah, like Kirby's got like 4 or 5. Point being, 3 of them are to Alabama. So you could even take the trivia a step further. Kirby's got more SEC championship game losses just to Alabama than any other coach has in the history of the conference playing anyone. 1-7 all time. Yeah, I agree with you. I've never even thought about it like that. I know it's very popular in Alabama circles to talk about it, the same way Bama folks talk about playing on the road at Jordan-Hare Stadium, like it's a curse. It's just a mental block. It's just blocking and tackling and execution, and the other team happens to have done it better than you. Maybe a little Justin Fields fake punt every now and then, a little bit of a head scratcher. But in general, I don't know. Yeah, but there's nothing. I think the only thing that would probably shock me is the blowout scenario, and that's just because I never see it between these two. So that's all that would surprise me.
I'm just going to, one more real quick, put this in my journal.
Yes.
Made note Josh had never thought of before. Got it.
Never thought of the blowout. Yeah.
We can continue.
Yeah,
I will say the health you brought up earlier, like LT Overton yesterday, seeing his status for this game, I feel like that kind of came out of nowhere. Bama's a little bit dinged up. Not that Georgia's completely healthy across the board. You mentioned Drew Bobo, but does that kind of catch up? And I don't know if you can institute this into your team this way, Josh, but Alabama probably needs the extra week more than Georgia right now. Not that either team wants the extra game, but if you're looking at health top to bottom, you go back to 2 weeks ago, when Alabama plays that non-con game in Lettuce Weekend, Bernard sits out, Brailsford sits out. I mean, now what you're seeing on the injury report, you're probably sitting there thinking to yourself, if we could get that bye week, that would be massive. How do you inject that into your team, though, and say, this game's more important so you can have a rest? I don't know if guys buy into that or play any differently that way.
I just wrote down 3 numbers on my piece of paper. All right, Isaiah Horton's doing his job. Jeremy Bernard has done his job all year. Latsier Brooks, 17. He's come on strong as of late. And then I got the number 2 written down here. And I don't know. Anyone's guess is as good as mine as to kind of what's happened to Ryan Williams. I think one of the most shock to the senses, but not overly shocking type thing that could happen in this game Saturday is all of a sudden he just reemerges. And if he does, I have not heard many people mention Ryan Williams' name in this game breakdown, because he really hasn't done anything much as of late. But yet there he is. Had a little bit of hamstring thing all year, but he's playing, like he's on the field. That would be the one thing where if we're at halftime and he's got 4 catches for 83 yards and a touchdown already, you're going like, yeah, I don't know that I expected that, which would be weird given Ryan Williams' history against Georgia.
The reasoning that I would say, well, first off, you and I have had this conversation before. Nothing truly surprises me in college football anymore because I feel like we've just seen everything and always prepare for something bananas to take place. At that position, I do think it's more mental than people believe, specifically with the drops. It's not like this young man doesn't know how to catch a football. It's not like he hasn't caught 100,000 footballs in his lifetime. He has. So whether you want to relate it to a golfer with the yips, a baseball player in a slump, whatever it is, somehow, some way, confidence is what will bring this back. So if you get him one-on-one early in this game and he makes a move and makes a circus act catch, does a 360, gets out of it and goes for a 72-yard touchdown, it wouldn't surprise me from that point on if Ty Simpson says, all right, let's try him again, and it works and it works and it works. Some of that will have to be with Georgia managing coverage over him if he gets favorable matchups. But I see that position, like, listen, I'm not trying to dog on receivers here, but let's be honest. Do we view them as the most mentally tough players on most teams? Probably not. Like, do we have certain guys in the past that were that? Of course. Like, there's no part of me that questions Jamar Chase's mental toughness. Like, I just don't think that that's a real thing. Like, Calvin Johnson, I don't question Randy Moss's mental toughness. So, like a Marquise Mays, I've heard McElroy tell stories about him, like, would never question his mental toughness. But we know collectively it's probably not that across the board, which also tells me that when something good goes their way, if that is the hurdle that's in front of them, you can probably clear it for good very quickly. Whereas you get an offensive tackle, you got to be mentally tough to even do the things that are asked to do. You get beat a couple times by, say, a Will Anderson or a Whit Weeks early in the game, you're probably done for the afternoon. Like, you're not really bouncing back from that because now you're constantly thinking about what's going to be next, how it's going to happen. I could see that position having a quicker mental bounce back than maybe a lot of others on the field.